And welcome back to our last lesson in stats, 3.6 p-values. So again, to review, we've been looking at the mean, median, mode, weighted mean, trimmed mean, percentile ranks. Now we want to take the idea of percentile ranks one step further. Last lesson, I gave you some raw data and asked you to present me or calculate a percentile rank. In this lesson, we will give you certain percentile ranks and ask you to analyze the data based on them. So what we want to start off with is the idea that percentages, or percentiles, since they're out of 100, so 0 percentile rank, all the way to 100 percentile rank. Because they're out of 100, they can easily be converted to a percentage. So if I'm looking at a large data set and I know the person's percentile rank, I can come up with their percentage as well. So let's look at a typical example here. The following statistics are available for the amount of money families spend on groceries per month. So we've asked 1,800 families, a rather large data set. And when you crunch the numbers, you find that if a person is in the 25th percentile, they're spending $200 a month on groceries. If they're in the 50th percentile, they're spending $300. If they're in the 75th percentile, we're spending $450. And if we are in the 85th percentile, we're spending $500. So now we can start asking questions. Because I know my percentile ranks, and I know how many families we have, I could ask you questions like how many families are now spending at least $200, or how many families are spending between $200 and $500. The fact that percentile ranks out of 100 allows me to ask these questions. So let's look at a couple of questions here. What percent of families spend between $200 and $300? That's our first question. And then part two to this is, well, how many is that percentage? So the first thing that I like to do is identify my p-values for my given dollar amounts. The p-value of 200 is p of 25. The p-value of 300 is p of 50. And this is coming directly from my chart here. P of 200 is P25, 300 is P50. So basically what I'm asking is what percentage falls between 25 and 50. So I take my larger percentage, subtract my smaller percentage, 50 minus 25. Well, 25% of my families are spending between $200 and $300. Now we take that to the next level. How many is that? Well, if I know I've got 1,800 families in my study, what's 25% of them? So I times this by 0.25, 25% as a decimal, and I find that I've got 450 families. Now my only caution to this question is, what if my answer had been a decimal? What if I had 450.2 families? Well, this is where you have to realize that families are a discrete value. Basically what we mean there is that you can't have a decimal. I can't have 0.2 of a family. So in this case, I need to have whole numbers for my answers. You're asking yourself right now, do I round up or do I round down? For this, I would like you to truncate your answer. And of course, truncate means just chop off the decimal. If it was 450.2, I would simply take my eraser and erase the decimal. No matter what it is, 0.2, 0.9, 0.8, take off the decimal. So let's look at question number B. What percent of families spend 450 or less? And again, how many? So same process, let's get our p-values. 450, well that's p of 75. Now my next number is or less. Well, here's one thing you have to remember: or less means all the way down to nothing. So if I'm spending no money on my groceries, my p-value is p of 0. So the lowest p-value, the lowest amount of money I can spend, will be p of 0. So I've got p75, p is 0. 75 minus 0 is 75%. So 75% of my families are spending $450 or less. Second part is how many? My population has stayed the same at 1,800. I'm going to times this by 0.75, and I'll find out that 1,350 families spend $450 or less. Question C and question D. Now I've lost my percentages, but we'll be sliding up to find them. What percentage of families spend 500 or more? So we go up to 500. 500 is p of 85. So this is p85. And then the same idea here, our second number is from or more. More means the maximum amount of money you can spend, all the way up to $1 million billion. So if I'm spending the most out of all the families, I'm going to be at p100. I'm spending the most, so my percentile rank will be the most. So what's in between 85 and 100? We take our larger p-value, we subtract the smaller one. 100 minus 85 is 15%. Step 2, how many? Same process. My population times my percent as a decimal. 1,800 times 0.15, 270 families. So this data says that 270 families are spending more than $500. Okay, now let's go to D. We're looking at spending more than $450, but less than $500. So we're in between $450 and $500. P-values. 450 is p of 75. 500 is p85. So 450 again is p of 75, and we're coming to p500 is p85. So again, same process we've seen before. We take our larger p-value, so 85, and we're going to minus 75. So 85 minus 75 gives us 10%. So 10% of our families are in between 450 and 500. Second part of this, again, we take our population, which hasn't changed, and we times it by our percentage as a decimal, times 0.10, and we have 180 families. So we've looked at 4 questions that are asking information in different ways, but again, process being the same. Get your p-values for your 2 numbers, get the percentage, and times it by the population. We can go into our workbook now. We can do questions 1, 2, 3, and 4.